Wager Talk's last call. I don't know where that music's coming from, but it's already driving me crazy. It wouldn't be a show if we did not have technical issues, people not logging on or, coming to talk to us from behind the counter at the Westgate Superbook. All jokes aside, we've got a star-studded lineup for you guys today. So I'm kind of in a bad mood. I went 1-3 yesterday. I log into my Splash Sports Survivor, and I'm like, all right, I'm ready to make my Survivor picks for the Kelly and Murray Survivor Madness. And I realize I'm now eliminated after day one in all 4 of my entries. So we're just going to get through this together. It's kind of like a therapy session here sometimes, and you guys have to be my therapists. We're going to have a better day today. I've got 3 picks up. I already tweeted them out. We'll get through some of those, as well as some of your favorite handicappers picks. We've got VR joining us as always. He'll be here the rest of the weekend. Jesse Schule is going to be taking some of your questions behind the counter. And Steve Merrill, who did the entire Friday slate. I watched it this morning on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Will be joining us to take some questions as well. I don't know if we're going to get somebody from the Westgate Superbook. With those guys not named Art DeCesar, you just never know who's going to show up. That sounds like Jesse's waiting in the wings. So we're going to get to him here first to answer all of your questions. That's what we do here on Last Call. We've got about an hour until tip or so. And then we got WagerTalk today with the Prez. So we'll bring in, let's actually bring in VR. VR just logged in. If he's ready to go, let's knock him out here and then get to some of the questions. VR, I know a little scrambled. I told you you're going second, but Andrew Babakidis did not show up this morning as promised. He's now 0 for 2 on the show on time-wise. Maybe we can get him on the back end of the show. But I did get a text from Art DeCesar, just popped up. So I'm going to give you what they've got behind the counter at the Westgate. And you can tell me, well, is there something to codify or not? Sharp action. Mississippi State opened up as a dog and is now a 1.5-point favorite. Michigan State over 151.5 is now 152.5. UConn over 146.5, now 148.5. Grand Canyon was sharp. 11.5-point underdogs now down to 10. 3 public sides for the day. Akron, North Carolina, and Marquette. And Art says his favorite play today is St. Mary's -4.5.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the game, VR, that I can't quite understand. Here's the reality. I think we start to make inferences based on conference on early play, right? Texas gets eliminated early. Mountain West gets throttled. Now everybody's starting to get those biases into their minds. I think that there is a little bit something to them. Like today, I like Colorado State -1.5. And it took me until right before the show to actually bet them. I didn't get any real confirmation, but the line did not move in the other direction like I thought it would. Thought a ton of people would want to bet Memphis after the Mountain West, now 0-2 in the tournament. Your thoughts kind of on the St. Mary's game? Because I've seen sharp guys on both sides.
Yeah, and we actually took Vandy. That was one of the first bets we placed. Of Vanderbilt, I got -5, -115, and then we took -4.5 as well. They wanted plus 4.5, forgive me, or better, and that's what I turned in. But I was able to pick off some 5s at -115 as well. So we're definitely on the Vanderbilt side, and the line reflected that. But as you said, and as Art confirmed, there is going to be some resistance. There's guys that are going to disagree. We saw that yesterday. We've seen it throughout the NIT as well. And that's just one of those games where there was some take back on the favorite. But again, the side I'm sitting on is the Vanderbilt side. Here's what I can confirm. Mississippi State, also sharp. We got down on that early at -1 and on the money line all the way up to -115, close to I turned into -118. They didn't have a problem with it on Mississippi State on the money line. Also, both of those overs on Michigan State and UConn, 2 more that I bet earlier in the week. So 100% confirmation that it's sharp. The other side, Grand Canyon, we haven't bet that. None of the groups I share with bet that, but I have heard sharp guys that do like the Grand Canyon side. That's one of those teams that tend to get public money. And no surprise, when I look into the back end, it's about 65-35 in ticket count on the Grand Canyon side, but the money's even higher. So there's not only a decent ticket amount, the money's higher, which usually does reflect sharp bets as well when it sticks out like that. So there's definitely the books on the side of Maryland. The other Akron is a darling today of the recreational bettors. They love this Akron team, and they were tying them in from yesterday. Parlays from yesterday tied in with Akron, plus the 14 and a half, whatever they were able to get from yesterday. Those are the things that stick out the most. That one stuck out in Mississippi. He also talked about UNC getting a ton of love from the recreational bettors. It's like that all across the country. I have a book on the East Coast, a book on the West Coast that I have access to, and both of them are loaded with UNC money. In fact, as soon as they won their play-in and put a number up, it was bettors already lining up to take UNC, and it wasn't the sharp bettors that are on the North Carolina side. And I think the number reflects that, because we'd be looking at a much higher number based on the how one-sided Mississippi actually is. In fact, I'm a little bit surprised that you could still get 2 at some of the spots on Mississippi, but it just goes to show again how much money is on the side of North Carolina. So if anything, that buy order that came in on Mississippi with not just the group I work with, but other groups I know betted as well, it hasn't moved the line very much. If anything, we just came in and helped those books minimize some of the risk that they had. Real quickly, I want to share, that's why I was about 3 minutes late logging in. That's something I don't like to do. I love being on time and making sure you could depend on me. I was betting 3 women's college basketball. I gave them out to subscribers because we tend to do well on those smaller markets. So I'll share them with you here. They were 3% plays, which means 0.75 of bankroll. You never bet more than 1% of bankroll. 30-10 Michigan, -3 up to -115. 30-12 Notre Dame, -31.5 and -32 on Notre Dame. And finally, 30-22 TCU, -30.5, -31. I know all the attention's on the men's side, but value is value. And if they're firing on women's college basketball, there's got to be a reason. Just like I gave out Grand Prix in China to my subscribers the other night, because they unloaded on a couple of these drivers, and I said there's something going on over there in China that we got to get a piece of. Before I let you go, I love that you just allow me to go with the long leash, Kel. Here's some of the games that stick out the most as of right now. At Mount St. Mary's, again, I talked about this yesterday, that with the big spreads, they're taking the dogs. They're not laying it. It happened yesterday. And it's happening again today, where anything above the 20s, 22, 24, 30s, they're taking the points with the dog there, except in the Florida game. That's the only one where they are betting Florida. They're laying the 28, whatever they have to lay. They're betting the Florida side. Another dog that they like today is Bryant against Michigan State. They're betting Bryant plus the 17. And no surprise, again, that was one of the double-digit dogs. And another one, Lipscomb over Iowa State. That one also went over. That got steamed. Forgot to share that one. It wasn't our group. Guys I share with, they came in last night on over in the Lipscomb game. And Xavier over Illinois, one-sided. I'm talking 7, and that's a small spread. It's different if a team's a -8 favorite, -10 favorite. They should get the money. But when you're seeing not just betting dog, but they're taking Xavier on the money line, I mean, 7 out of 10 tickets on -110 are on Xavier, but on the money line, it's almost 100%. There's like 0 Illinois money line action. And Akron, we touched on. Again, I repeat it because it jumps out so much. And Grand Canyon, which is supposed to be sharp also, we touched on that. It sticks out. As I'm looking, more money is coming in on the Grand Canyon side. And a game I know Art gave out Liberty, as he liked Liberty earlier in the week as one of his top plays. That one's kind of split. A little more money definitely on the Liberty side. Again, not surprising. Public loves betting these dogs, especially in the first round. That tends to change when we get to the Sweet 16, Elite 8, Final 4. They start to go back to the favorites and over. But today, as of yesterday, they are betting the dogs. That's what's sticking out the most.
All right. The dogs were kind of barking yesterday, VR, but I felt like they were better in the first half. Joe Ranieri and I were talking before the show. We took Montana first half as opposed to full game. Thank goodness, because if I lost that Montana game after that guy had at least 3 opportunities to get that cover, I would have been not very happy. I had an awful day yesterday. So today I'm taking it light. I ended up adding Colorado State -1.5. I already had bet Arizona -14.5. Here's
like
kind
it.
of my thought process. When you have a day like yesterday where you stayed off a couple of winners, you only bet the losers, like what's your advice for people going into day 2, Friday of March Madness?
Honestly, Kel, the exact same approach. That's what took the hardest for me to do, is get to that point where results don't bother me. I started training myself by not looking at the scores at the end of the night, so I could sleep, wake up normal like you do, whether you
So
won
you
or
don't wake up
lost.
at 3 a.m. in a panic to see if St. John's second half covered?
No, I didn't know. And at the end of last night, I needed UCLA and who did we bet that last game -2? Whoever that little favorite was. Michigan. Yes. We bet Michigan -2. And I didn't even know till I woke up today. We lost the over on the UCLA game, but we hit both sides. I didn't know. So I urge you, if you can do that. It's hard to do during March Madness because I'm not a game watcher, but even I'm watching the game during March Madness. So it's difficult to do that. The next thing that I always do, and I don't want to sound boring, but if you've already established your bet size, you can't hurt yourself. Meaning you're not going to chase. You're never going to look to double up. If you know I got $1,000 bankroll, I'm betting 1% on everything, $10 a game. You're never going to lose sleep over that. You know you're going to be surviving any long-term negative stretch, and positive stretches, you're going to build it. And when you get to 1,500, you increase bet size. 1% of that is now $15. You get to 2,000, 1% of that is now $20. And I know it sounds crazy because no one with $1,000 bankroll in their pocket right now at the sportsbook is betting $10. They're looking at me like I'm nuts. But just like poker, the guys you see playing those big high limit tournaments, playing those big high limit games, I was here at the Mirage in the late 90s. Those same guys were playing 2-4 Hold'em. I promise you, they were playing 2-4 Hold'em, 1-5 stud. That's how you do it. Because if you can't beat them with $1,000 bankroll, you're not beating them with a $20,000 bankroll. That much I can promise you. So the key is eliminate that stress, and then a bad day isn't going to rock you, isn't going to change what you're doing the next day. And that, to me, has been my salvation. That no matter what I did yesterday, I have a bet size already established. So I can't chase. I can't try to win it back in one game. And as long as you stick to your rules, you're going to do just fine. But you got to shake it off. You can't approach it like, oh, well, now, and you want to be more conservative. I get it. But at the same time, you can't determine, especially in the short term, how some of these are going to play out. I had the over in the Wisconsin game. I had over 150. I bet at 151 over. My subscribers in the back end, it was 151.5. So that's what I released it at. It was at 151 with like a minute or so left. They took a couple 3-point shots. They missed them. We lost that by a hook. A 4% play, that's a difference of 8.5 units as far as for my subscribers. That kills you inside. But in the short term, that's going to happen. So you got to shake that off and simply do what you do. If the board offers value today, you fire, but you don't go searching. Meaning if you're a little behind, you don't go searching. You wait for the games to come to you. You wait for the plays to come to you, and don't be afraid to fire. Whatever happened yesterday is in the past. All you can do is look forward and make good decisions. That's it. I always say, don't repeat, correct. Just correct, don't repeat. We all make mistakes. I make tons of mistakes. And what I try to do is not repeat them. Try to correct them. And every morning you have that opportunity to do it the right way. And what you do reflects that of a winning bettor. If it doesn't, then it reflects that of a gambler. And you know what happens to gamblers. So you're not watching this by accident. You're not up watching this by accident. You're sharp. You already know what to do. Just follow through. That's the hardest thing. I was a great preacher when I was younger, but I wasn't a great practitioner. Now I've become as good of a practitioner as a preacher, and that takes a while to master.
It absolutely does, VR. Thank you, as always, for coming on. We'll see you tomorrow morning, bright and early there on the West Coast to get all of your insight from behind the computer screen. We're going to bring in Jesse Schule up next. Take all your questions. Guys, if you have a question about a specific game, drop it in the chat. Good morning, Jesse. It might be actually good night over there on the other side of the world. Thank you for joining us here on WagerTalk's Last Call. We got about an hour until the games tip off, but we only have 45 minutes until the Prez takes over on WagerTalk today. Thomas Brown wants to know about Bryant. This is a game that VR just barely touched on there for a second, said that some groups were taking the points with the dog. Joe Ranieri just texted me and reminded me that the big favorites went I think it was 1-5 yesterday, 1-6 yesterday in the first half against the spread. And look, Houston, the only one to be able to get it done. Houston first half, still a great bet. But let's talk about Bryant. Maybe we just need to be looking at them in the first half here.
First half bet, getting the points. The question, do they have a chance? Presumably, do they have a chance to cover? I don't think that they have a chance to win outright. The first half trend, I like that. I like this Bryant team. If they had a better matchup, I would like them a lot more. But I also really like the Spartans. I mean, their defense and the way they were playing at the end of the year, I was surprised that they didn't win the Big Ten tournament. I did have them in their last game when they went crashing out of the tournament. I guess was that against Wisconsin, I'm thinking. Yes, it must have been. I do like the Spartans. 17 points is a lot, though. Yeah, you could talk me into a Bryant first half play.
Okay. Yeah, they did lose to Wisconsin there in a close one in the Big Ten Conference. Look, Izzo in March, right? Like, we all want to deny it. We all want to say, hey, this is not the same Sparty team, but yet they always seem to make the Sweet 16. I'm sure they advance, but this does seem like an awful lot of amount of points. So unless they're hitting their threes, I'm not sure they're going to be able to cover it. I do like this Bryant team. Obviously won the American East Conference tournament. Now here they are as a 15 seed. This team likes to play fast. So I do think first half is the play here for Bryant. Maybe wait until second half. Michigan State has been a great second half team. All right. Clint wants to know, rotation number 797, 798. Xavier, Illinois, he likes the over. Look, here's the real reality with both of these two teams. I don't want to bet the under, right? But the bookmakers know that they're not going to get a ton of under action. Xavier the other night just absolutely walloped Texas. And while the final score wasn't quite as bad as the ass beating that we saw, Xavier looked pretty good. Illinois, Brad Underwood, I love him as a coach, but there's something off about this team this year. And I'm very quick to say I don't want to lay the points. As VR mentioned, a lot of people lay it or taking the money line with Xavier, and I kind of don't blame them here.
Yeah, I don't see how you could feel comfortable with Illinois. They're a different team game to game. They haven't been consistent all year. They pulled disappearing acts. As far as the total for the guy asking the question, yeah, I mean, both teams put up points, and it is a game that looks like an over, but that number looks like a high number, 161. I'm a guy in this tournament. I'll be looking for unders. So far, we've had more overs hitting in the first round, and I think there's going to be some opportunities to lean on some unders. This game might not be the best game to get in on that, but I'll be looking for unders more than overs. Certainly today, tomorrow, the next few days, the first and second round. Eventually, we're going to get one of those days, Kelly. We've seen them before where 10 of 12 games goes under the total.
Yeah. And as of right now, I don't know when that's going to start happening, right? They started off 4-0 to the overs, and it just kept going. Even the delayed games that used to be kind of that play, whenever a game was 20, 30, 40 minutes delayed because of the other games taking too much time, people historically bet the unders. Last year, they were awful. Last night, it was awful. So as of right now, not going to be doing it. All right, let's talk about this first game up that starts in less than an hour. Mississippi State or Baylor. Jesse, here's the real reality. At first, I looked not all right. Here's a Baylor team that has had a off year, right? Kind of with Scott Drew's squads, we expect them to be significantly better. They had some troubles there down the stretch in the Big 12 and then end up losing to Texas Tech in the Big 12 tournament. But that's because this team likes to play really, really slow. Even though they do have a lot of experience, this team does not play cohesive basketball well together. They're great at getting rebounds. They don't generally beat themselves, but they cannot defend the three-point shot. The good news is Mississippi State can't make a three-point shot. Talk to me about this one.
Yeah, well, you give us some great reasons not to like either of these two teams. And, it's close to a pick'em game, and I think the odds makers are right on here. I mean, it's really tough for me to sign up for Baylor. They were disappointing this year. They were supposed to be a lot better than they've been. Mississippi State, much like Illinois, game to game, you never know when they're going to show up. Maybe you could convince me that a small lean on Mississippi State, but to be truthful, I wouldn't bet on this with Lawrence Presman's money.
He will be up here in about 40 minutes hosting Wager Talk today. You guys
The
are
last
stuck
time I said that to him, you know what he said to me? He said, "Well, I've got an awful lot of money, Jesse."
Well, that's the good news, I guess, for Prez. Okay, let's get into some more of these games. Guys, if you have a question for Jesse, drop it in the chat. New Mexico, Marquette. These guys got a lot of totals questions today. The Celine 786 wants to know about this under. Here's kind of my thought process, Jesse, on this one. I kind of want to make a case for New Mexico. I said earlier to VR, I liked Colorado State today, but the Mountain West has been, well, the Mountain West. Outside of that San Diego State run a couple of years ago, they have been a historically bad bet in the NCAA tournament since I started gambling. Yes, they've kind of turned it around in recent years, but I'm still not sure what we're going to see from these teams. Richard Pitino has this New Mexico team playing extraordinarily fast basketball, but here's kind of the reality with the short spread. They don't make their free throws, and those types of teams really tend to frustrate me. Here's Marquette. Not a bad year for Shaka Smart. Pretty standard in itself. Don't make a lot of three-point shots here. If anything, I'm leaning towards the under as well. The Celine. Jesse, your thoughts on this total?
Well, he's got a nice number at 154.5. And as I said, we've seen those overs cashing. And the more those overs cash, the more people there are willing to bet on overs, the fewer people that are willing to bet those numbers down. And it's inevitable. I mean, at some point in this tournament, we're going to see a string of unders hit. And I think potentially today could be a good day to load up on unders. And this is a prime candidate, this game right here. So you could talk me into it for sure.
All right, guys, if you have a question for Jesse, drop it in the chat. Steve Merrill's going to join us here in about 7 minutes and get us home. I just got a text from Andrew Babakitis, so I'll check that when I'm not on camera next. Let's see. Let's talk about a couple of these other games that nobody has really mentioned yet. Jesse, I mentioned earlier in the week, I laid 14.5 right out of the gate with Arizona. I think Arizona is one of those sneakier teams that can have a good run here in the tournament. They like to play fast. They do all the things I need teams to do. They don't beat themselves by turning the ball over. They get offensive rebounds, and they make their free throws. They're a very experienced team. But it seems like because Akron has this win streak that everybody wants to back this Akron team. My problem is when you have teams that haven't played anybody throughout the season, right? And then we're now asking them to step up in competition. It does happen. Drake was able to do it yesterday. I was dead wrong. I gave out Mizzou. But I think this is a game that looks like Arizona could absolutely run away with, at least from the defensive side of the ball. And this is also a game that I would not want to touch an under on.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I like Arizona. There's certainly no shame in losing to Houston in the conference tournament. Arizona had a pretty fine season in the Big 12. Clearly, the Big 12 is, SEC gets all the press. Big 12 is pretty good, too. Arizona, nice transition from the Pac-12 to the Big 12. Coaching, talent-wise, it should be a mismatch. I sort of like this Akron team, but, yeah, they're not cut out to hang with Arizona. Should be a blowout. I will mention I'm not looking for underdogs in this tournament. My philosophy heading into the tournament is the fun thing to do is try and find those dogs, who's going to be the next 12 seed to go on a run. But I'm not sure that strategically that's the best way to do it. I mean, the simple fact is you talk to everybody at the water cooler and what their strategy for March Madness is. Everybody's talking underdogs. Nobody wants to touch a favorite with a 10-foot pole. To me, that's a clear indication that the value is going to get sucked out of taking the underdogs plus the points. If everybody wants the dogs, that takes away from the value of those dogs to me. So that's just one thing to consider. And everybody remembers those big upsets. But what I remember is when it comes down to the Elite Eight and the Final Four, it's a show dominated by the Blue Bloods. You don't see too many Akrons and Loyola Chicagos getting there. We've seen a few, and we remember those. But what I remember is 90% of the time it's Blue Bloods.
Listen, I get that, but like every year a team sneaks in, like an NC State or one of those, always seems like FAU a couple years ago, San Diego State. Like there are teams that sneak in. I just don't think it's a team named Akron. Really quickly, we have some breaking news. Alabama forward Grant Nelson, who had an ankle injury, is now available to play today against Robert Morris. Let's take a couple more questions here with Jesse, and then we'll bring in Steve Merrill. Jesse, Titan CT wants to know your thoughts on rotation number 784, UConn -5.5 versus Oklahoma. I bet Oklahoma. That was one of the very first games I bet. When I got off the boat on Wednesday, had my Hard Rock app available to me. Here's kind of the reality. I have done very poorly. Especially in the SEC, right? Betting on or against. I took Kansas against an SEC team. Kansas absolutely. Well, we'll just save the mean things about Kansas. But all of us that saw that second half, they had many opportunities to put away the Razorbacks. Also, Texas, just kind of one of those teams that I didn't think deserved to get in. I said on the Kelly Murray show, Oklahoma didn't deserve to get in. But now here I am betting Oklahoma against UConn because I do think that this is a play against UConn for me, not necessarily a play on Oklahoma, Jesse. And that is because I like this offense for the Sooners. And if they get hot from three-point land, oh boy, look out.
Well, I'll piggyback off what you just said because for Titan CT, if you do like Connecticut minus the 5.5, I think the under is the better play here. I've seen the total up as high as 149. If Oklahoma's offense is clicking and they're able to speed this game up and, like Kelly said, hit their threes, they're probably going to cover or win outright. And if Connecticut's going to cover that 5.5, they're going to have to slow that game down, prevent Oklahoma's offense from clicking. And 149 for a game involving the Huskies is a pretty high number in my opinion. I'm looking for that transition from seeing a bunch of overs hit in the first day of the tournament to a bit of a correction coming. And one of the slowest teams in the country, only averaging around 66 possessions per game. If you like Connecticut in this game, I think you got to like the under and better value. You don't have to lay points.
All right, guys. One more question for Jesse, and we're going to get him out of here. Any opinion, Jess, on let's talk about this as a game we haven't hit on. Man, Mount St. Mary's. What are you doing with this? I watched Steve Merrill's show this morning while I was getting ready. He goes over all 16 games for today. He talked about this one because it's the first rotation on the list. And it's like, here's Duke, the number 1 overall seed. This is a bazillion points, right? We're looking at, 32.5 for this Duke team. I think Duke could name the score if they wanted to, Jesse. But how do you handicap motivation in this one? Duke knows they're the number 1 overall seed. They know they're not going to lose to a Mount St. Mary's. Do they sandbag it? Do they go all in? How do we actually make an educated guess onto what the Blue Devils are going to do here?
Well, the interesting thing to me about Mount St. Mary's is that first 4 game, everybody and their dog had the under in that game. That total got bet down about 5 points from opening. Mount St. Mary's comes out, and I think they shot 58% from the field. They hit a ton of threes. I mean, they were just hitting everything. The game goes way over, and everybody gets caught with their pants down. They come in here off that performance. Certainly they're going to be letting it fly, and they're going to be shooting with confidence. How does Duke handle it? Like you said, they could name their score. They'll probably try to get a little bit cute, Lob City style, run up the score. There's no real incentive there's no reason for them to be tight. There's no reason for them to really be concerned. They're a 32-point favorite. I don't think they're in danger of this game being close. So I kind of like the over in this game. And as I said, I'm a guy looking for unders, but this number, I see this one going over.
All right, Jesse, give yourself a little self-promotion. Let everybody know what you got going up over on WagerTalk.com.
Well, I'm being quite cautious with the first round of the tournament. I had one play yesterday. I had Michigan over San Diego. That was a 5% winner. That's 7-0 the last 4 days and perfect 10-0 with NCAA tournament plays since last season. And I got a 5% play posted on my page at WagerTalk right now.
Great stuff from Jesse. WT.buzz/JS. Steve Merrill waiting in the wings as if he didn't already do enough college basketball content today. Great job, Merrill, with your Friday video. I watched that this morning while I was getting ready. Lots of really good tidbits. If you guys want a little bit more analysis, we can get into some of those games. If you have a question, Steve, I got about 15 minutes for you. Then we got to get out of here so Prez can do his thing on WagerTalk today, and we can get in any of those last-minute bets. So far, yesterday you had quite a few plays, if I remember correctly. How did the first round or the first day of the tournament go for you?
Well, we started 0-2 with the two early games, so it was kind of an uphill battle. Ended up 3-5, but we missed half a point on the San Diego play. Not that that was the right side; they were down most of that game, so we're half a point away from a 4-4 day. But it was frustrating, Kelly, because I'm watching the game live, and as a basketball coach, I noticed things. And the big goof from Michigan kind of just fumbles over on the first free throw, and they don't say anything. I went back and watched it. He was over the line, so it could have been a 2-point game. But look, these lines are tight. We're going to have a lot of that. The one that got me was Clemson. You and I talked about it yesterday. I told you, be careful with McNeese. Remember? We did that video a week or two ago before the brackets. I said Clemson had the metrics of an underdog. Shocker. I did have them in my Final Four in the bracket, but I put in my alternate bracket, even for my clients, I put McNeese and I put Gonzaga. I was very close to using Gonzaga instead of Clemson as my sleeper. We'll see if the Zags can get by Houston now on Saturday. But McNeese is a dangerous underdog, and it was unfortunate that Clemson caught them in the first round. Wasn't the matchup I wanted. But my big takeaway from Thursday was how bad the ACC looked. Clemson looked awful. Louisville looked awful. Does that bode well for North Carolina or Duke today? I mean, Duke won't have much of a matchup like you said, but still got to be a little bit nervous about those two teams remaining.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I'm really glad because I did not do well in my pick'em, so I'm going to splash. I created a Splash Sports high money, I don't know, pick'em madness, but you have to go against the spread. And I had an awful day yesterday, Steve. I went 1-3. I had some good first half plays that we had written down here on the show, but it was an uphill battle. I think I ended up 7-9 yesterday, it looks like. Not great. Nope, I take that back. 6-10 yesterday. What an awful day. That being said, I did change 2 of my bets because of doing the show with you, so thank you for that. We got McNeese and we got BYU, so I'm very happy to report that we lost Montana by the hook. A little painful. That being said, today is a new day, as VR mentioned. How are we going to approach today's new day? And then Seth wants to know if Duke is back on the board and if Flagler is in or out. I will work on that on the odds logic screen while Steve tells me how we're going to approach a bounce back day for both of us.
Yeah, first of all, I don't think it matters if Flag plays or not. I mean, he's going to probably be limited. I would think they would try to get him a few minutes to move around so he could play Sunday. But they can name their score against Mount St. Mary's, as you mentioned earlier with Jesse. So I'm not too worried about that. I'm not even sure it should affect the line. I mean, they were up double digits against UNC and Louisville without him last week, and Mount St. Mary's is the worst team remaining in the tournament. I will also point out we did not have that monster Cinderella upset yesterday on Thursday. You got to figure it's coming today. Which game that'll be, I don't know. Every season we have at least one 13, 14, or 15 seed, and in recent years we've had either a 14 or 15 win a game. We did not have it happen yesterday on Thursday, so you would expect that to probably come, but I don't think you handicap the games any differently because of that. By the way, one game I heard you talk about earlier was Akron, Arizona. I like Arizona. It's a game I was definitely considering today. The line was a couple points higher than I thought it, or pretty much where it should be, so not enough line value there, but if you take out the 15s and the 16s, the 4 remaining, Akron is the lowest rated team remaining in the tournament in the Ken Poms. So they're not a good squad, and they both play fast. And whenever you get two teams playing the same style, especially if it's fast, it just does not bode well for the underdog because Arizona does it better. They're more talented. I do like the over here as well, and I think that enables Arizona to win by margin and win and cover the double-digit line.
Sorry, I'm texting with Ski Profit right now. He just texted me. He said, I can't believe you didn't bet Houston first half yesterday. I said, because all the dogs. I mean, I did the video with Crack. He said, Callie, if you're looking at the underdogs, look in the first half, and we'll see. We'll see how this plays out.
Auburn was up by 10, right? Auburn was a 20-point favorite. They were only up by 10, and that was the play-in team that had some momentum. And I mentioned that in my video yesterday, that if you're going to take a flyer with these ugly dogs, and it would apply to, Mount St. Mary's today as well, maybe there is a little bit of momentum because keep in mind when Fairleigh Dickinson beat Purdue 2 years ago as a 16, they came from the play-in round. So we have seen this momentum be a real thing. My alma mater, William & Mary, the Lady Tribe, first tournament ever, first tournament win ever last night, first team with a losing record in the history of women's basketball to win a tournament game. They carried the momentum from 4 straight wins in the CAA last week. So modern college basketball with 3-point shooting being so much more important, there is something to momentum. But so once again, I want nothing to do with Mount St. Mary's, but if you're going to play them, I think the first half is probably a safer option if Duke has a little bit of a hangover after winning the ACC last week.
Very good point. Andrew Wojnicki and I are on the same page. We like both of these 4.5-point underdogs, Vanderbilt and New Mexico. Now, I didn't get to the window with either of them, Steven. Look, Marco made a really good case on Bet on It for St. Mary's, and he's right. This is not a St. Mary's team. Like, since I moved to Florida, I have not followed the West Coast Conference near as much. And so I only got to see a little bit of them during the conference tournament. They do look very solid, and the SEC has looked a little down. Vanderbilt, one of those teams that I'm not sure that I completely trust. Your thoughts on this one? Am I missing something here with St. Mary's? I mean, Vanderbilt, ugly loss in the SEC tournament to Texas after losing to Georgia and Arkansas. Maybe this team is just they peaked during that 3-game win streak, and that was it?
Yeah, line hasn't moved much. It's been 4.5 all week. I do see a little bit of a sharp lean on St. Mary's, so I think it's more likely to go to 5 than back down to 4. I believe Ace said earlier this week that the sharps are actually on Vanderbilt, though. I was surprised to hear that. It's St. Mary's or pass for me in this game for a couple reasons. First of all, we talk about pace and tempo. You and I talked about that in a video we did last week. And St. Mary's, once again this season, plays about as slow as anybody in the country. They're one of the 5 slowest teams in the nation. Meanwhile, Vanderbilt's top 60 in pace. So you have a fast Vanderbilt team, slow half-court St. Mary's team. I think that's going to frustrate the Commodores. They have not been a good team this year when they've been slowed down. I also think Vanderbilt and the over, St. Mary's and the under are definitely correlated in this game. We've seen very little movement on the side or total. 4.5, 135.5 has held steady all week, but I do think depending on which side you like would dictate how you play the total as well.
All right, let's talk on that Marquette, New Mexico State game, or New Mexico game, excuse me. Steve, I mentioned I'm in the splash contest that I created that you have to pick every single game on the board. So I did end up playing New Mexico in that spot. We touched on this a little bit earlier. Here's my problem with Shaka Smart's team. I don't really like their style of play for being a faster paced team, not the fastest by any means. They don't beat themselves by turning the ball over, but they don't really knock down any 3-point shots, and they struggle at times from the free throw line, plus they create a lot of fouls. So this is not a team I wouldn't necessarily be laying points with. But of course, New Mexico, super fast, and, well, they're in the Mountain West. And as you know, I've always taken Mountain West unders. The only time I lost it was the year that San Diego State went on that massive run. What do we do here? I feel like I really wanted to get on board with New Mexico, and I kind of let that bias get to me.
Yeah, I think the side is pretty spot on. I actually only made the line about 3, so at 4.5, I do think it's a little pricey now. You can make a case the line's about a point too high. Let's look at the total, though. 152 it opened. It's about 152.5 now. I like the over here for a few reasons. First of all, you mentioned how fast New Mexico plays. They're one of the 5 fastest teams in the country this year. Shaka Smart, he's not necessarily a run-and-gun team, but he's a havoc defense. Havoc defense is his thing. That's his trademark. And they're on the upper half of tempo as well. So I think New Mexico will be able to push the pace in this game, which gets you looking over. And then you look at the matchup as well. Neither team turns the ball over, but both teams try to force turnovers. So what happens is when you play pressure defense like both teams play, but you break it, you're going to get some quick scores and some easy layups. So I think both offenses hold the edge here. And then you look, New Mexico takes very few 3-point shots. But VCU, I'm dating myself. Marquette's defense is much stronger against the 3 than the 2. So I think New Mexico matches up well there. It's going to come down to VCU. I grew up in Virginia watching Shaka Smart at VCU. It'll never change. He took him to the Final Four. Marquette's offense thrives on the 3-point shot. So really the side and total will come down to, once again, does Marquette hit the threes? That's such a random variable. But I do think the tempo will be fast. I think the over is the safest play.
Yeah, lots of Memphis money coming in right now. I just got a text from John Murray and said that the Westgate Superbook needs Colorado State bigly. I laid 1.5 with Colorado State this morning. Now we're starting to see ones pop up on the odds logic screen. Steve, what did I do? Am I just really am I a glutton for punishment here?
Memphis is tricky for me because I think they are vastly overseeded. And I mean, I think everyone's onto that, right? They're a dog as a 5 seed. So there's really no, once again, this is why the lines are so sharp now. You look at UC San Diego misses by the hook yesterday as a 2.5-point dog against the Big Ten Conference winner. they would have been 5-6 years ago. We would have covered that game. So there's really not a ton of value with some of these, surprise teams. And Colorado State as a 12 seed is very dangerous. They're favored for a reason, and I do think they are the better team. A lot of uncertainty with Memphis. They've been missing one of their better point guards, but they've played well without him. If you look at the Ken Palms right now, I think Memphis is 49th in the Ken Palms. Colorado State is much higher than that. They're 44th. So I had this one pretty much priced where it is at a pick-em range here. Hard to lean either which way when you're only getting a point or so. Not a big fan of Memphis long-term, but I will say if you're looking to fade the public, at least a contrarian call today, Kelly, it probably is Memphis in this one, a 5 seed getting points.
Yeah, they were on my long list. This was not meant to be a contrarian play until John Murray just sent that text message. All right, let's give you a little bit of self-promotion. Then we got about 5 minutes till we got to get out of here.
First thing, the contest is still available. It goes down in about 30 minutes. So if you're watching us live, go to my page right now, stevemerrill.wagertalk.com. You will see the link to the Friday March Madness contest. If you pick enough games, if you get 11 or more out of the 16, you win free best bet service anywhere from 1 day up to 1 year, $2,000 value. And once again, you got about 30 minutes to enter that. Link is on my homepage. You will also see 6 best bets for this Friday. I really like this Friday card. We are locked and loaded with 6 NCAA tournament best bets. All of that is available right now on my page, Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com. And you can get there quicker with that shortcut, wt.buzz/SM. And by the way, the $25 credit is still available if you haven't used it yet for any one-time purchase. So you can get all 6 plays today for $39. You use that $25 promo code BRACKET25, and it gets it down to $14. Psst, don't tell customer support I'm giving away 6 best bets for $14. I'll get in trouble, but it is what it is. Promo code BRACKET25. All that information is on my homepage right now. Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com. Get there quicker, wt.buzz/SM.
All right, guys, if you have a question for Steve, we're going to take about 3 more, and we're going to get out of here. My phone is still ringing from John Murray, at least in the group chat. Maybe there's some more things to share. Let me check. Steve, is there a game that narrowly missed your card today?
Ooh, yeah, there were a few. First of all, I forgot to mention I did do the videos you talked about earlier, all 16 games. And guess what, Kelly? I realized after I sent it out last night, about 2 hours later, I was laying in a yoga class, Serenity Now. I don't remember talking about the Texas-Illinois game in the video, and I'd skipped it, and someone did point that out in the comments. I don't have a real strong opinion on that, but once again, if you missed it in the video, I'll give it to you real quick here. Always leery of those 11 seeds coming in off the play-in win. I talked about Shaka Smart and VCU a decade ago. They were the first play-in round in 2011. They went to the Final Four. I think every year, but just 1 or 2, we've had one of these teams make the round of 32 this weekend. So that'd be either UNC or Texas, or Xavier. I'm sorry, Xavier. Texas was up double digits. Xavier, Illinois. I didn't even talk about it in the video. Would have had the wrong team maybe. I do think UNC is the more likely of the 2 11 seeds to win today. They're favored over Ole Miss. Once again, we're not getting much value. The odds makers are sharp. They're onto this stuff. But I do pause a little bit, like I said earlier, after seeing how bad Louisville and Clemson looked. No one thought UNC deserved to make it. They looked perfect against San Diego State. I do think they probably regress a little bit. But if you had to pick an 11 seed to go, I think it's probably going to be UNC. Illinois has been so up and down over the past month, but I do think if they play their normal game, they're the better team. So I would side for them over Xavier, and I'd look UNC over to be that 11 seed that makes the round of 32 after the play-in.
I know this is a March Madness show, but like sometimes I have to share funny things that just happened to me. Apparently, according to my Wikipedia page that somebody changed, I'm 74 years old. They changed my birthday to May 7th, 1951.
Those cruises will age you. I mean, those cruises will age you, but you're looking good for 74. I think you get a discount on the next cruise. That's good news.
My birthday is now before my mother's birthday, apparently. So that was fun.
That's hard to figure.
Hey, these guys are having a good time. They need more hobbies besides me and sports betting.
I was always jealous I didn't have a Wikipedia page, but now I'm kind of glad I don't. I can only imagine the chaos that could ensue. How do they regulate that? So, like, I mean,
I have no idea.
How does that happen?
How
does AI allow that?
I don't know, but it's Wikipedia. Like, can you really, I mean, do you take it with a grain of salt? Probably.
I do. I rely heavily on Wikipedia. It's the gospel.
Oh, yes. That does not shock me. Guys, if you have a question for Steve, we're going to take one more. Otherwise, we're getting out of here because the Prez has got to take over for Wager Talk today. All right, no questions left. Dan Alexander says, I hope you guys have a profitable Friday. I need a bounce back in a big way. I've got my 3 plays up on my X. Thanks to Steve Merrill at Steve Merrill on Twitter. Thanks to Jesse Schule at Jesse Schule on Twitter. Thanks to VR. He's going to be back with us tomorrow. In addition to Ralph Michaels, we're going to do some TNA for the second round of the tournament. Very excited there. And Art DeCesar is supposed to join us from the Westgate Superbook. We know he'll actually be here because he does what he says he's going to do. And then, of course, Bill Krackenberger, the crack man himself, is going to be joining us as well, taking all of your March Madness questions. Hope you guys have a wonderful Friday, and we'll see you tomorrow.